Namaskar. I extend a very warm welcome to you all on behalf of Bharatiya Dharohar Evam Samskriti. I am Samhita Gandhi, your host. I wish you all a very happy International Museum Day. Since 1977, the 18th of May has been celebrated as International Museum Day by the International Council of Museums to raise awareness and engagement with museums worldwide. Museums being a pillar in cultural exchange, knowledge sharing, and safeguarding our heritage. This year's theme focuses on exchanging views and thoughts on museum in the context of research and education. As our fourth drop in the ocean of Museum Day celebrations, we have gathered here for a two-day international conference on museum education and research. With a lineup of 18 speakers divided into 4 sessions, each led by an esteemed session chair and guided by distinguished dignitaries, we are ready and thrilled to begin this marathon. Before we begin, I kindly request everyone to keep their microphones muted when not speaking. As we will be conducting the event without scheduled breaks, please feel free to take necessary breaks at your convenience. We appreciate your cooperation in maintaining the decorum of the platform by using your cameras and microphones appropriately in your respective surroundings. Thank you. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Sumathi Krishnan to commence our conference with a divine opening and get us blessings. Dr. Sumathi Krishnan, Secretary of the Music Academy Madras, is a versatile musician, musicologist, and scholar with expertise in Carnatic and Hindustani music traditions. Trained under renowned guru Sangeet Kalanidhi Srimati R. Vedavalli, she also studied Hindustani bhajans under Sri Srikant Bakre, a disciple of Ustad Amir Khan. As a great A-graded artist, she has performed bhajans on All India Radio as well. Her doctoral research focused on Varnams for voice training and creativity under the guidance of Dr. S. A. K. Durga. Dr. Krishnan actively engages in performances, lecture demonstrations, and teaching across various prestigious platforms globally. She has authored a book on Muthuswami Dikshitar and Thiruvarar and presented papers at seminars on music. It is a pleasure to have you on board with us, ma'am, as always. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Samhita, for the introduction. And before I render the invocation, I just want to share a little about the piece that I'm going to sing. I'm really very honored and happy to be part of this very august gathering. In museums, you treasure and value your heritage, our artifacts, our culture. And in music, actually, it's oral research or oral history that is archived through traditions that get passed on through generations. So this is part of an oral history tradition that I'm going to render. This song has been composed by a well-known harmonium artist from Kolkata, Sri V. Balsara. He's no more. He used to accompany great artists like Gyan Prakash Ghosh and others. So this song on Saraswati has been composed by him in the raga Madhubanti. I thought it would be apt for this occasion. Saraswati Devi ki jai ho, Saraswati Devi ki jai ho, Saraswati Devi ki jai ho. सांस में दम में सुर हो ले हो, सांस में दम में सुर हो ले हो, सरस्वती देवी की जय हो, सरस्वती। तबला पखावज ढोल मृदंग, तबला पखावज ढोल मृदंग, अनेक अगणित लय हो, लय हो, लय हो, सरस्वती देवी की जय हो, सरस्वती। श्रवण शोभनीय तेरी मीठे सुरों से सजाऊं, श्रवण शोभनीय तेरी मीठे सुरों से सजाऊं, सात सुरों की माला लेकर मधुर गले पहनाऊं, कदमों तेरी छम छम बजते नूपुर से लिपटाऊं, कदमों तेरी छम छम बजते नूपुर से लिपटाऊं, तार वीणा के छिड़कर तेरी मन को मैं रिझाऊं, ईश्वर की है कला ये न्यारे, ईश्वर की है कला ये न्यारे, जग में इसकी जय हो जय हो जय हो, सरस्वती देवी की जय हो, सरस्वती देवी की जय हो, सरस्वती।
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am, for such a serene beginning. Next, I extend an invitation to Professor Dr. Rajeev Lochan for the welcome address. Professor Dr. Rajeev Lochan is a practicing artist and former director of the National Gallery of Modern Art with over 16 years of leadership experience. His goal has been to make art accessible to the public and involve them in cultural activities outside traditional institutions. With more than 2 decades of teaching experience, he has made significant contributions to the academic understanding of creative expression. Professor Lochan holds a doctorate in literature from Kyoto City University of Arts and has received numerous awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Omani Society of Fine Arts. His career has had a lasting impact on the field of art, both nationally and internationally. Welcome, sir. Sir, you will need to unmute yourself.
Okay, unmuted. Well, thank you very much for this warm introduction and lovely being here. Well, on behalf of the Bharatiya Dharohar, Evam, Samskriti, and in particular its key initiator, Dr. Kedareswari, allow me to extend a very warm welcome to you this morning to the 2-day International Conference on Museum Education and Research to celebrate the International Museums Day today. We have a very distinguished list of panelists from Dr. B.R. Mani, whom I could see but not say hello, Professor Kinnara Murthy, Dr. Rautella, and pardon me if I'm not able to include the entire exhaustive list because there are some outstanding people there, and I'm sure that you will be the one who would be introducing them. Well, this 2-day seminar would cover several important aspects pertaining to museums and its activities. The Dharohar, as part of its activities, covers, well, universities, colleges, organizes seminars, and brings about an awareness about our heritage, both tangible and intangible. Helps budding artists, organizes lectures to make the experience more immersive, and uploads these programs like today, I understand, always. Well, I've had the opportunity of being with this institution for almost 3-4 years now. Am I right? Let's start the proceedings in a more philosophical note that I'm used to, rather than just the mere welcome, because this entire 2-day activities is going to cover those facets of museum and its manifestations that is going to engage us for the next 2 days. I have these two personal thoughts of mine that I invariably land up sharing and take that as a takeoff point for other scholars to brew and share. They're my takeoff points. I always feel ideas can be hypothetical, but they need to be governed by their own logic to formulate their own meaning. This is exactly why such conferences are so important. And Kedareswari and your team, I compliment you for having organized that and having thought of me as a retired man now for 7 years of having given me this opportunity of, welcoming this distinguished guest. There's another thought of mine that I firmly believe in because I see no distinction between science and art. I feel fantasy is the basis of all hypotheses, as much applicable to science as it is to art, because creativity is the common denominator. The interesting thing about museums is that museums deal with other people's creativity, including a creative way of trying to showcase and bringing it to common masses. And that's what is most challenging, developing, and transforming. Perhaps the entire purpose of conference of this nature is this. The last statement before I come to a historical fact that I wish to share, that is August gathering, is this quote from no other than Marcel Proust, whom I'm a great admirer of. He said, each one of us is similar and dissimilar to each one of us, as many as there are eyes and minds that awaken every morning. The role of a creator is to provide an image to it because our observations are not mere passive records. As museum experts, this is exactly what our challenge is, to be able to provide the umpteen kinds of meanings and readings that an object of the past has come to our rescue. I want to purposely use the word rescue. I'd like to, in an article of mine, I had quoted about a particular exhibition, and I want to take this opportunity up. In this regard, I'd like to review the idea and enterprise of an exhibition that occurred almost 150 years ago. Of this exhibition, Henry Cole wrote, I quote, "The history of the world, I venture to say, records no event comparable in this promotion of human industry with that of the great exhibition of the works of industry of all nations in the year 1851. A great people invited all nations to a festive to bring into comparison the works of human skill. It was carried out by its own private means, was self-supporting and independent of taxes and employment of slaves, which great works had excited in ancient days. This was one of the largest exhibitions of Oriental and European arts and crafts, juxtaposed with skill and the need to generate responses from an alert audience. It was then that the expectations were organized to the remotest places, encouraged through and with museums that generated a need to exploration and discovery, a concerned need to utilize and compensate people and cultures. Similar ventures are necessary even today, as we are linked by technology, means that enable a transcultural interaction with a socially diverse people. Well, that's the thought. I thought it would be most appropriate, besides welcoming all these distinguished scholars. Dr. Mani, you are one of our personalities who is going to lead the keynote with a keynote. Over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We are delighted to have you here with us. On behalf of our society, I'm privileged to extend a heartfelt welcome to our chief guest, Dr. B.R. Mani. So your presence here to deliver the inaugural address is a profound honor for us, and we are truly grateful to have you with us on this special occasion. Dr. B.R. Mani, esteemed Director General of the National Museum and Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Heritage, is renowned for his exceptional contributions as a field archaeologist, numismatist, and art critic. With a distinguished career spanning decades, Dr. Mani has held prominent positions, including Additional Director General at the Archaeological Survey of India. His academic journey, marked by numerous accolades, include gold medals for his exemplary academic achievements, culminated in a PhD on life in the Kushan Age from Banaras Hindu University. Throughout his illustrious career, Dr. Mani has been at the forefront of archaeological exploration and conservation efforts across India, unearthing significant sites and directing over 19 excavation projects. Notable among these projects are the excavations at Ayodhya, which provided groundbreaking evidence of temples predating a mosque construction, shedding light on India's rich historical tapestry. As Director General of the National Museum, Dr. Mani spearheaded transformative initiatives, revolutionizing display techniques, educational programs, and outreach endeavors. Under his leadership, the museum undertook pioneering excavations at Kunal, uncovering relics from the pre-Harappan era, further enriching India's cultural heritage narrative. A distinguished member of the national and international organizations in his field, Dr. Mani's scholarly pursuits have led to the publication of 6 books and approximately 200 research papers. His visionary leadership and unwavering dedication continue to leave an indelible mark on the field of archaeology and heritage preservation. Welcome, sir. Your wisdom and insights are eagerly awaited.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Wish you all a very happy International Museum Day. We all are here today to deliberate upon a subject which is an integral and central part of all museum activities. The Bharatiya Dharohar Evam Samskriti has rightly chosen to celebrate this event as a larger part of the tangible heritage. Dharohar is in custody of the museums. Museums have a very great responsibility of documenting, preserving, researching, and communicating about these artifacts. In India, the museum movement officially began with setting up of the Indian Museum in Kolkata in 1814, when the antiquities were shifted from the Asiatic Society to the Indian Museum. During the first few decades, the main museum activities were collecting, listing, documenting, and researching. The publication of descriptive catalogs of the collection began in the first few decades of the 19th century. Hence, research had taken center stage of the museum function right from the beginning. During those decades, museums were more object-oriented. However, as the museum movement gained ground, the visitor came to the foreground, and museums were now both object and visitor oriented. Hence, parallelly, museum posts were created, like education officer, who was in charge of planning lectures, talks, exhibitions, art appreciation courses for the visitor. As the visitor profile widened, it became necessary for the museum to communicate information in different forms, which could cater to the taste and understanding of wider audience. Hence came up posts like publication officer, publication assistant, etc. Museums initiated art appreciation courses. Museums then began a course entitled Short Course in Museum Studies. The dawn of the 20th century saw the mushrooming of a large number of museums across India. ASI's site museums began with Sarnath Archaeological Site Museum in 1910 royal houses, private collections, society museums, some of which, like the Raja Mahendra Viram Society Museum, which was utilized as a center for educating the masses about the ill-affected or ill effects of colonial rule, spreading awareness about the role of freedom fighters, the freedom struggle, etc. Hence, museums effectively played a role in educating the masses about the contemporary socio-political conditions. Another parallel development was the passing of national legislations and antiquarian laws protecting cultural material. Soon states followed suit and the general public became aware of the importance of protecting our heritage. Scientific labs were set up in museums to conserve and restore antiquities, educating the curatorial staff of the museums about the different aspects of preventive and curative conservation of objects also became an important aspect of collection management. Museum education and research plays a very significant role both in collection and visitor management. Mid-20th century saw the setting up of a museology department in Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, popularly called the Baroda University, which also set up a university museum. The Department of Museology in the Indian Institute of Heritage, which was previously known as National Museum Institute, has played a vital role in imparting MA and PhD degrees to the students aspiring expertise in museology. The Mayo School in Ajmer started a museum. Today we have museologists from both universities and Mayo School who will be presenting papers. I appreciate that a conservator from the British Museum, a professor from Nepal, and a scholar from Thailand are also here, including our national institutions like Indian Museum, Kolkata, IGNCA, New Delhi, IGRMS, Bhopal, National Tribal Museum, Manipur State Museum, CEPT, Ahmedabad, Dr. Rautela, who served as the Director General NCSM, the National Maritime Heritage Complex, Lothal, Gujarat, Usmania University, the Telangana Mahila Vishwa Vidyalaya, Woxen University, Professor of ASCI, and my friend Rajeev Lochan. Indeed, this online conference is going to be extremely interesting, covering varied topics, and is really going to serve as a reference for young aspiring museologists and those already in service. The two-day international conference is perhaps one of a kind being organized in the country, and I wish it all success. For the entire success of this online seminar, I think the initiative taken by Kedareswari ji is very important. With these words, I declare the International Conference on Museum Education Research open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for honoring us with your graceful presence today. Ma'am, you want to say something?
I have no words to express my gratitude to the Director General of National Museum and the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Heritage for coming online for all of us, encouraging us, and wishing the best for the 2-day conference. Sir, please accept my gratitude. I'm also very grateful to Rajeev Lochan, a very dynamic leader in this field, a very, very sincere person. He often takes a very active participation in the proceedings or in the functions or whatever the Bharatiya Dharohar Evam Samskriti does. Thank you, Rajeev. With this, back to you, Samhita.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite our very own Dr. J. Kedareswari to deliver the keynote address. Dr. Kedareswari is a renowned historian and museologist, having served as the curator of Salarjung Museum and former director of the Department of Archaeology and Museum, Government of Andhra Pradesh. She is a Museum Excellence Fellow at the Chicago Art Institute and a Charles Wallace Trustee Awardee, with an extensive experience including work and training at the prestigious institutions like Victoria and Albert Museum and the National Museum of Scotland. Dr. Kedareswari has curated international exhibitions, founded the Andhra Pradesh State Art Gallery, and held significant positions such as Director of Archaeology and Museum, Director of Culture, and Additional Commissioner of Heritage Curator at the Salarjung Museum. She has also served as an advisor to the Government of India and the Andhra Pradesh government, and is actively involved in various boards and committees related to archaeology and museology, with an intent to increase awareness on heritage and culture and to network like-minded individuals for the same. Dr. Kedareswari has taken up a unique initiative, Bharatiya Dharohar Evam Samskriti. Being the president of this society, her aim is to preserve, protect, and spread knowledge of Indian culture and heritage. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Samhita. I think I have a PowerPoint presentation which I would like to share. Allow me to share, Samhita. Meeting notes didn't get So good morning, everybody. Is it shared, Samhita?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
I have a special request. Dr. Mani, in case time doesn't permit you because you've got a lot of engagements, I wish you all the luck for today's engagements. And you need not wait for the proceedings. We will be posting it to you, sir. You can see it whenever you want. So if I mean, you must feel free to leave whenever you want. Now, this Bharatiya Dharohar Evam Samskriti has been founded with a single motto: preserve heritage for posterity. This international conference is basically to bring all like-minded, like Samhita told us, onto a common platform to discuss what we could do for museums, education, and research. The story of the development of museums in India is largely unwritten. We are yet to record it. And it began in the 19th century with the setting up of the Indian Museum, Kolkata, which Dr. Mani was referring to. And then though it toddled in the beginning, later on it raced from Ajaib Ghars or House of Curios to new heights in the new millennia. Now we have museums with different aims, objectives, collections, and they have blossomed everywhere in government and non-government sectors. Corporate offices, teaching institutions, historic freedom struggle memorial museums. In fact, the airports also now have museums, Jai Hai, and finally the recent G20 Digital Museum. It's my pleasure to inform all of you that the Government of India is commissioning 10 tribal freedom fighters museum across India, with the National Museum being based in Gujarat. This is the Indian museum Dr. Mani was referring to, our first museum of our continent and the 7th of the Asian continent and first of our country. This is the Mayo College, which Dr. Mani referred to, which had the first college museum in mid-20th century. The august audience attention is needed, is the Hyderabad Museum, founded by Usman Ali Khan. Please see his jewels. You can see his jewels here. These are in the Government of India collection today, the Nizam's jewels. This was founded in 1931, and Usman Ali Khan's vision was one of the greatest visions, which we shall go into in some other conference. This is the freedom struggle founded by our Prime Minister, Jallianwala Bagh Smarak. It's a memorial museum, the bullet marks, and the Partition Museum in Amritsar. And this was the airport museum I was referring to, Jai Hai. This time, any of you all traveling, please notice this. Then the iconic G20 Digital Museum at Bharat Mandapam celebrates shared heritage. It is really a path-breaking digital museum. Now, even the subject of musicology was not to be left behind, and it was opened first in the premier institution in Maharaja Sahajirao University, and then later it opened up in different institutions, universities, and today we have Dr. Mani, who is the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Heritage, from where even I acquired my PhD about 2.5 decades ago. This is the MS University Vadodara, which houses the premier institution of our museology. It has the first department of museology in 1951, and it has a departmental museum also, university museum. Now, coming back to the definition of museums, the International Council of Museums held museums to be a collection in 1946, an institution establishment in 51, a permanent institution in 61, and in 2007, they included the intangible heritage too. So it went through a different variations, different debates, different general conferences, and finally, on 24th August 2022, it again was reformed, and now we have defined museums as a museum for not-for-profit permanent institution in the service of society that researches, collects, conserves, interprets, exhibits tangible and intangible heritage. Open to the public, accessible, inclusive, museums foster diversity and sustainability. They communicate ethically, professionally, operate, and with the participation of communities, they offer varied experiences for education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. Now, this definition is absolutely loaded. It enshrines all the activities and responsibilities of a museum and leaves no stone unturned in enumerating the scope of work. In fact, it's almost like a micro standard operating procedures, though we are yet to have an SOP for museums in India. Now, what are museums doing? We are always striving to reorient ourselves as instruments of educational and cultural significance, relevant to social needs. We have to become relevant. Otherwise, often we become the butt of jokes. People often say, "Ye museum piece hai, isko museum mein rakh do." So we really need to cut that joke now. National museums under the Ministry of Culture are mandated to celebrate, commemorate important national days, birth anniversaries, etc. Museums do connect. We have various community-based programs, outreach and far-reach programs. In fact, I was very disappointed recently that a museum, a national museum, called this conference something outside the museum. And they said that they could not support this because it was outside the museum. So we need to change this attitude. This is called an outreach and far reach program, not an outside the museum program. Some of the programs which we have had with ICCR, with the Buddhist community, with the Jain community, who totally financed this Jain gallery you see in the State Museum of Telangana. This is the curiosity that people have, you know, to come and see objects. This is the Indian Museum, Kolkata. And this is a women dhakis, women power. Previously, these dhakis were males. Now women have entered this domain too. This is also in Indian Museum. This is the great Navaratri, Durga being worshipped and the community participating. This is an exhibition on Quran. This is a children's art camp where about 250 children participate. It's not enough. We are still not accessible to our rural children. This is a theater group. This is a craftsman workshop for university and college students belonging to painting, etc. And this is the human resource development class being taken on heritage. This is curiosity. When Salarjung Museum was housed in Diwan Deodi, this is the number of people who came to see the clock. And now it's housed in this particular present building, number of people. So this is a star attraction which draws people. So we need to have star attractions. In fact, I would like to share an anecdote. Dr. Rangarajan, who has served as the economic advisor to the government of India and the chairman of so many committees, before giving up office as governor, because the governor is the de facto chairman of the Salarjung Museum board, he asked me, Kedareswari, everybody talks about the clock. Can I have also a look at it? You know, so that was the kind of curiosity which this clock, you know, generated. So let us now we have, ensure we have seen all our activities. Some examples I've given you. Let us observe some activities in the Met, New York, the Metropolitan Art Museum. And this is an enchanted forest that they have depicted. It's a centerpiece. And the contributing editor has written, we wanted to create this romantic landscape and environment that felt like you're coming into a magical, enchanted forest. This is the kind of experience now the present generation is looking forward to. So when we, as the definition defines, we have to have experiences which are relaxing, which are entertainment, and at the same time impart education. So I have coined a word called edutainment. You must have heard of the Met Gala 2024, the Costume Institute's new exhibition, Sleeping Beauties, Reawakening Fashion. Wendy Yu, curator in charge, Andrew Bolton, visually connected 250 culturally significant garments from different eras through the common thread of nature. This was the great fashion show we recently saw. It's all over. You can have a look. But look at the underlying meaning and look at the theme. Now, is the phrase they operate, they is the museums, offering varied experiences for enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. From the ICOM definition of museums applicable to this event? It's a big yes. Now, moving on to some other activities of the Met, which I had an occasion to visit their education department way back a decade ago. They must have further made a lot of improvements. Met Escapes. This was a program for visitors with dementia and their care partners. This was a program for adults. This was another program for adults, Explore with Us. This was a program for teenagers to join their sessions, and what it is like behind the scenes when we have to prepare for an exhibition, when we have to prepare for a conference, when we do our conservation work. What is it? How does it seem? What is the function? The students are requested to enroll and they are trained here. Then we come to discoveries. workshops with developmental and learning disabilities and autism spectrum disorders, and programs for visitors who are blind or partially sighted. Then the fellows colloquia, and then the educators program. Educating the educator is most important, including the directors. Because when you have a non-technical director, it becomes very difficult to convince them. They are more busy with audit, etc., of the budget. But to understand why a museum is operating is lost upon them. Now, we may say that we have very few posts in the education sectors in India in museums. Dr. Mani was telling us about some educational posts, etc. Now, but in the Met, look at the department. There's a chairman of education. There are many verticals under it. Academic programs, concerts, lectures, administration of the education department, gallery and studio programs, public and exhibition programs, school and teacher programs. And under it, the whole program flows. So they are open to the public, accessible, inclusive. Museums do foster diversity and sustainability. We in India also are accessible, are inclusive, but our problem is the demographic factor. Are we able to reach the rural areas? I felt a failure when my house staff's children, I was sending them to visit Salarjung Museum and the zoo. We had to pay about 500 rupees each for the child. And then I come to know that the mother wants to know, why should I spend 1,000 on 2 children? So I told them they should go to the museum. And she asked me in Telugu, museum ante yemitamma, which translates, what does a museum mean? She's my house staff working in Hyderabad, and she doesn't know what a museum is. So that shows the extent of our outreach. Now, let's come back to now France. Because it's an international conference, I thought I must make a reference to these countries too. France's iconic institution, Louvre. Most of you would have visited Louvre. Today, it gets its first female head in 228 years, Laurence Descartes. Why? Because she has a fantastic legacy. She promotes social issues through art, which is a great responsibility. And we are working in India on this, but we have to put in more effort. Boosting young visitor numbers. Again, we do work. We have to further boost our activities. Giving art and visitors more physical space in Musée d'Orsay. That's one of the best museums in Paris. If you ever be there, please visit it. And she favored restituting works looted by the Nazis. Of course, this became a controversial later, but do we also need to work towards this? Getting our artifacts back? Then, Descartes led the museum's 2019 exhibition of black models from Jericho to Matisse, focused on previously overlooked black figures in French art. So this was her legacy. The present director, the Luc Martinez, is credited with making Louvre more accessible and less elitist. Now, all these activities may seem to fulfill some phrases in the ICOM definition, like accessible, inclusive, participation of communities, offering varied experiences for education. Yes, it does. But for whom? For a few who can afford to come, pay the ticket, entry ticket, enter the museums. Percentage of our total population we cover? Should we question ourselves? Which sections do we cover? And are we elitists too? Are we justified in investing millions, billions of rupees for a chosen few? This is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right and freedom of all human beings. This is a resolution 217 passed unanimously at the United Nations General Assembly on 10th December 1948 in Paris. Eleanor Roosevelt, chairperson of the drafting committee, another woman at the helm of affairs. Now, how much do we follow this? Way back in 1948, another quarter century, it would complete a centenary. But how much do we, give out from the museums to our rural India? Now, the burning issue to be addressed by museums world over. It's not enough to talk about artifacts. It's not enough to have conferences and seminars. We have to act. Global warming and climate change. Data from NASA's GRACE and GRACE Fellow, the satellites, show that the land ice sheets from Antarctica and Greenland have been losing mass since 2002. Both missions have ended in 2017-18. This is important because the sheets of Greenland and Antarctica store about 2/3 of all the fresh water on Earth. They are losing ice due to the ongoing warming of Earth's surface and ocean. Meltwater coming from these ice sheets is responsible for about 1/3 of the global average rise in sea level since 1993. Antarctica is changing in ways that will impact all of humanity. We need action on a global scale. Reduce carbon emissions and slow the climate crisis. It's code red. We need to contain warming to under 1.5 degrees. Just have a look at the icebergs in September 2018 and November 7th, 2018. It has started breaking off. The Pine Island Glacier in 2018. And coming back to India, here are some events in 2021 spurred by climate change. Increased cyclone, increased forest fire, and drought. So the power lies within all of us to reduce this footprint. The National Council of Science Museums, the Director General of NCSM informed me just 2 days ago, it's developing a new gallery on climate change. This exclusive gallery is expected to be opened on 10th November 2024 to commemorate International Science Day. I am sure all the museums can approach NCSM for setting up such galleries in their respective museums, which will help educate the visitors. Museums should also reach out to the rural areas of Bharat to make our institutions accessible and inform our population about this climate crisis. Now, coming back to the other phrases from the definition of a museum, they operate and communicate ethically. They means the museums, professionally and with the participation of communities, offering varied experiences for education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. So hope these 2 days deliberations help us to reflect, share knowledge, and see in which way we can arrive on common ground to save our planet and take decisive action to slow down the effects of the climate crisis. So what is the need of the hour? This is quite an important slide. I do hope I get all your attention. Museum policy updation as per the present scenario. Rotation of directors periodically like HODs in universities. In the last 60 years or 50 years, the Salarjung Museum has hardly had 3 or 4 directors. Good human resource and support system. Revision of recruitment rules according to the collection. Preparation of a duty roster for each post and regular training for updating knowledge. Accountability and work performance audit. Preparation of standard operational procedures. Technical persons to head the museums. It is very difficult to work with non-technical directors. Regular educators to education, including the director. Even the head of the museum should subject himself to training, update himself about what's happening inshore and offshore. And the most important, selection committee members in museums to be museologists, or the selection committee should be chaired by a museologist. Friends of the museum fraternity, I would like to inform you all that I could not answer a question for the post of director when I went for the interview. I was asked by the chairman, who was the vice chancellor of a reputed university in Hyderabad, about the working of a lift in the museum. It's a very great antique in the museum. I could not reply, and I was not found suitable for the post of director. I walked in with volumes of my publications, volumes of papers, huge experience of heading Directorate of Archaeology, Museums, Culture, the founder director of a very important state gallery in the state of Telangana, the additional commissioner of heritage. But I could not answer about the lift. Sorry, so I was not selected. But hence, it becomes important to have the right people at the right place. Last but not the least, let us play a relevant role in society. Let us not make museums the butt of anybody's joke. Thank you so much for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you very much.